severe cough and that he's been sick for quite a while. She says the first thing she needs to do is stabilize his condition. She then asks the child's parents how long he's had a fever. The mother thinks for a moment and says the fever started just this morning. Ellen then asks if the child had a cough or any symptoms before that. The mother replies that yes, for the past 2 days, the child had been acting a little strange. Ellen carefully examines the child and notices that he's sweating heavily. She says he could be dehydrated and that his tonsils are badly swollen. She realizes that if his condition gets any worse, his life could be in danger. She tells a nurse to move the child to a private room. Hearing this, the parents panic and ask if their child will really be okay. Ellen calmly assures them that he will be fine, but explains that if the child isn't isolated, the illness could spread to others, including them. That's why keeping them separate for a few days is the best option. After that, Ellen asks her father to bring some medicine. Her father brings it, and Ellen divides the medicine into 3 parts. She explains that since the patient is a child, she reduced the dosage. She tells them to give the medicine every 12 hours. The parents agree. At that moment, the nurse starts praising Ellen. Ellen quickly denies it, saying it's nothing special, but the nurse calls her the healing princess. Hearing that, Ellen gets embarrassed and blushes, and everyone around starts laughing. Then the scene shifts again. We now see the child's father talking to an unfamiliar man. He says that he was completely shocked when he saw the healing princess treating patients. He explains that the medicine worked incredibly well and that his son was literally cured within 2 days. The unknown man listens carefully, nodding again and again. He then says that everything being done here must be with the help of spirits. He declares that no matter what, he'll find out who's really behind all this and what their true motive is. The child's father then adds one more thing. He says that the hero who once saved their country was also present there. Hearing this, the man is shocked and asks if he's sure it was really that hero. The father confidently says yes. After that, the scene changes again. Now we see that man standing before the king. The king tells him that he knows he's investigating something and that it's not necessarily a bad thing. However, he warns him not to do anything reckless because he already knows what the consequences would be. The man says he understands, but asks the king to try and understand his perspective as well. At first, the king refuses to give permission for the investigation, but after repeated requests, he finally allows it, on one condition. He reminds him that the Bcuz family is extremely important, and nothing must go wrong involving them. The man thanks the king and leaves. That's when we find out that this man's mother is suffering from the same illness, and she also needs that medicine. That's the real reason he wants to investigate everything so thoroughly. After this, we see him walking away, thinking to himself. He wonders why the king suddenly granted him permission. He feels that the king was in a good mood, but at the same time, the smile on the king's face seemed to hide something deeper. Still, he decides not to think too much about it. Then the scene shifts again. We see the king ordering someone to bring his son. Soon the prince arrives. The king sits with him, drinking tea, and asks about the letters, specifically the ones the prince had written to Ellen. He asks if he received any reply. The prince says no, he hasn't received any response yet. The king reacts as if he understands something. Then he mentions that the Bcuz family has hired a highly skilled doctor who's curing everyone's illnesses. Hearing this, the prince is shocked and wonders what kind of doctor they could have hired. The next day, the scene changes again. We see Rovell, his brother Sovol, and their grandfather sitting together, discussing the situation. The grandfather explains that the number of patients has increased by 30% compared to last month, and that the situation is becoming serious. Ellen suggests that they should prioritize treating pregnant women, young children, and the elderly first. Everyone praises her idea, saying she spoke exactly what they were all thinking. They're impressed by how sharp her mind is. At the same time, all 3 of them start thinking about Ellen's safety. Because so many people now know about her, she's in danger. Aelin notices their expressions and understands what they're worried about. Sovol then tells his grandfather to bring in the person he mentioned earlier. Ellen asks what's going on, but they tell her to just sit and watch. The grandfather steps outside and comes back with a young boy. This boy turns out to be Alberto's son. He has been hired to protect Ellen. Ellen is shocked and says she can't believe Alberto was married. Alberto laughs and says it's not that big of a deal. His son introduces himself as Kai and thanks Ellen for saving his father's life. He says his father told him everything about how she helped him. Ellen replies that it was nothing special, and she politely bows in greeting. As they continue talking, Rovell suddenly jumps in and tells them to stop getting so close. He says they shouldn't act like Ellen has no guards at all. He then calls out, telling someone to appear already, since he knows they're listening. Right after that, Van appears. Everyone panics and tells Ellen to stay away from him, but Roval tells them not to worry and explains that this is Van, and there's no need to be afraid. He says Van has been with Ellen since her childhood. Van introduces himself, saying he's a spirit and the child of the Great Wind Spirit. Hearing this, Ellen immediately runs toward him. Kai tries to stop her, but Van speaks up, telling Kai that if he thinks he can protect Ellen, he should first learn how to protect himself. Kai doesn't like that at all. And just like that, tension rises between the two. Both of them want to protect Ellen, and because of that, they're about to start fighting. Seeing this, Roval jumps in between them and tells them to stop messing around, asking what they think they're doing. I called you all here to guard Ellen, not to fight among yourselves. Then they ask, how is Van supposed to move around in a city like this? Anyone would be scared just by looking at him. Roval tells them not to worry about that. As soon as he says this, Van transforms himself into a human form. Seeing this, Ellen gets really happy and says that Van looks amazing. Van replies confidently, saying he already knows that, and if she says so, then it must be true. Kai steps closer, and Van says to him, "Hey kid, did you really think you could protect Ellen?" And once again, chaos starts between the two of them. At that point, Roval jumps in and tells them to stop. He says he'll protect Ellen himself and doesn't need either of them. Ellen gets annoyed and tells them to stop already. She says she wants to leave and asks what is even going on. She complains that her father is being extremely annoying. Then the scene shifts. We now see that same man again, along with the prince. They've come here to find out who is actually making the medicine. They want to know if a spirit is really involved behind all of this. The prince, however, has only one real reason for coming here. He wants to confirm whether Ellen is involved in all of this or not. In truth, he just wants to meet Ellen. He even apologizes, saying he's been acting a little too selfish. At the same time, the investigator suddenly senses the presence of a wind spirit. He says that spirits are definitely involved in this matter. After that, the scene shifts again. A maid approaches Raphaelia and tells her that a letter has arrived for her. She adds that the letter was sent personally by the prince. Raphaelia happily takes the letter and softly says the prince's name. The maid immediately warns her that she shouldn't speak the prince's name so casually. Raphaelia snaps back, telling the maid to stop and asking who she thinks she is to tell her what she can or can't do. Raphaelia then starts reading the letter and becomes extremely happy. Whatever was written in that letter clearly meant a lot to her. Then the scene shifts again. We see Roval, Ellen, and the others traveling somewhere together in a carriage. Along the way, Ellen talks with Kai about Alberto and his wife. After that, the scene changes once more. Ellen finally arrives again to check on her patients, but as soon as she gets there, she realizes that the patients are fighting among themselves. Everyone wants to be treated first because they're all sick and desperately want their medicine as soon as possible. Seeing this, Ellen feels really bad. She says that she should make more medicine. However, Roval immediately refuses and tells her she won't do that. Ellen insists and keeps requesting, and in the end, Roval has no choice but to stay silent. Then the scene shifts again. We're shown a scene at their house where everyone has already returned. As soon as the maids see Van, they get terrified. Roval tells them not to be afraid. When Van switches back into his human form, everyone is shocked. He looks extremely handsome and well presented. Everyone sits down and starts talking. Suddenly, a maid runs in, panicking, and says that Raphaelia is missing. She's not in the house at all. Hearing this, everyone gets worried and immediately starts searching for Raphaelia. They look everywhere, but they can't find her anywhere. Then Van opens the gate and uses his spirit powers to sense something. He says that he just heard people talking about how, if they want access to the medicine, they would need to kidnap that girl. Ellen immediately realizes what happened. She says that those people actually came to kidnap her, but they mistook Raphaelia for her and kidnapped Raphaelia by accident.